Life responds to patterns. Poverty has one, and so does prosperity. What you do once doesn't matter nearly as much as what you repeat. The poor repeat excuses. The middle class repeat comfort. The wealthy repeat principles. A man can be broke and still on his way to wealth if his mind is rich, and another with riches in hand can be headed for ruin if his thinking is poor. The difference isn't always visible, but it always matters. Poverty thinks in terms of lack. The middle class thinks in terms of survival. The wealthy think in terms of creation, value, and legacy. What separates these three isn't fate or even talent, it's perspective. And perspective is something you can change. The mind, after all, is the one investment with the highest guaranteed return. I've learned over the years that the conversations we engage in reveal more than just our interests. They reveal our trajectory. You can sit in a room and within 5 minutes know what someone's future looks like just by what they talk about. The poor often spend their time discussing people. Who's to blame, who's ahead, who's behind, who's doing what with whom. It becomes a cycle of observation without elevation. Now, I don't say that to criticize. I say it to awaken. Because if all your mental energy is spent dissecting other people's lives, there's little left to design your own. Then you move to the middle class. Their focus shifts to things. Possessions, cars, houses, clothes, gadgets. They work hard, earn a decent living, and often reward themselves with symbols of success. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor, but when your conversations are centered around accumulation, you can become enslaved by lifestyle. It becomes about maintaining the appearance of wealth instead of building the foundation of it. Now, contrast that with the wealthy. Not just those with money, but those with wealth and wisdom. They talk about ideas. They talk about opportunities, philosophies, strategies. They're discussing market shifts, innovation, leadership, impact. Why? Because ideas are seeds. One idea, properly planted and cultivated, can change the course of your entire life. You see, wealth begins with perspective. If you fill your mind with gossip, you empty it of growth. But if you fill it with insight, you plant the conditions for abundance. When I was younger, my mentor said, "Let your conversations be filled with what you want your life to look like." That hit me hard. So I changed what I talked about. I started asking better questions. Not, "Did you hear what he did?" but, "What book are you reading?" Not, "What do you drive?" but, "What are you building?" And slowly, the quality of my questions began to reshape the quality of my life. So, the next time you sit at a table, listen. Are the people around you talking about people, things, or ideas? Because what you focus on, you multiply, and what you multiply, you eventually become. Money without direction is like a car without a steering wheel. You might move, but you won't end up where you want to go. And this is where the difference begins to show very early on. The poor often operate without a budget. Not because they don't want to control their money, but because they don't understand the power of a plan. Money comes in and it goes out, usually faster than it arrived. There's no assignment, no structure, no mission, just reaction. It's like pouring water into a bucket full of holes and then wondering why it never fills up. But the wealthy, they treat money differently. To them, every dollar is an employee. It has a job, a destination, a task. It's directed, not drifted. They operate with strategic allocation. Maybe it's 50% for essentials, food, shelter, the basics. Then 20% for investments money that goes to work while they sleep. Another 20% might go to growth books, courses, experiences that sharpen their mind and broaden their skill set. And then 10% for giving, because generosity keeps you grounded, and it's a reminder that abundance is meant to flow, not just accumulate. Now, this isn't just about numbers. It's about philosophy. It's about being intentional. See, when I was young and broke, I didn't need more money. I needed a better philosophy about money. My mentor told me, if you don't tell your money where to go, someone else will. That stuck with me. So I got serious. I started budgeting not to restrict myself, but to liberate myself. Because a budget isn't about limitation. It's about purpose. It's a map that tells your money how to build your future. Even today, I still use that same thinking. Before a dollar is spent, it's assigned. Before it's earned, it's imagined in its future role. That's how you build wealth, not by hoping to save what's left, but by planning with what's given. Because when your money has no instruction, it tends to follow the loudest voice, usually impulse. But when it has a mission, it becomes a builder of dreams. So don't just work for money, work with money. Give it direction, give it purpose. Build a life where every dollar is a step toward freedom, not a retreat into chaos. Debt can either be a silent thief or a powerful servant. It all depends on how you use it. Most people fall into the trap of consumer debt. Credit cards maxed out on things that lose value the moment you swipe. Cars they can't afford, vacations they haven't earned, gadgets that entertain but don't elevate. Debt, in this context, becomes a burden, a quiet tax on the future. You borrow from tomorrow to pay for a pleasure today, and then tomorrow shows up with a bill and interest. But the wealthy, they use a different rule book. They don't fear debt, but they don't use it carelessly either. They use leverage. And leverage is when borrowed money is put to work not to look rich, but to build wealth. They'll borrow to buy a rental property, where the rent pays the loan and still leaves a profit. They'll take a business loan to expand operations, increase income, or launch a product that continues to sell long after the debt is repaid. They use debt only when the return is higher than the cost. That's the critical distinction. I remember when I was just starting out, I wanted to buy a fancy car. And my mentor looked at me and said, "Is that car going to bring money in or take it out?" I didn't like the answer, but I needed it. He taught me that you never borrow to look successful. You borrow to become valuable. From that day, I stopped seeing debt as a means to consume and started seeing it as a tool to produce. That's how the wealthy think. They don't avoid all debt, they avoid bad debt. They look for opportunities where money borrowed becomes money multiplied. It's not about never using loans. It's about using loans wisely. Consumer debt keeps you chained. Strategic leverage sets you free. So the question isn't, should I borrow? It's, what will this debt do for me? If the answer is long-term income, growth, or equity, then you're thinking like the wealthy. But if the answer is temporary pleasure, prestige, or impulse, pause. Because wealth isn't about spending borrowed money, it's about putting money to work so it brings more back than it cost. That's the kind of thinking that leads not just to riches, but to real freedom. Most people think the key to wealth is making more money, but that's only part of the equation. The real difference lies in how you handle the money you already have. The poor spend first and save what's left, if there's anything left at all. The trouble is there never seems to be anything left. Expenses expand to fill the income, no matter how much it grows. You get a raise, and suddenly there's a new bill to match it. The cycle continues until time runs out and the account is still empty. The wealthy reverse that order. They save first and spend what's left. They pay themselves before they pay anyone else. And that's not just a financial strategy, it's a discipline. It's a mindset. Saving first isn't about having money lying around. It's about commanding your money with intention. It's saying, this portion is mine to build a future with, and I will not touch it. That habit, done consistently, turns small beginnings into big results. When I started my journey, I wasn't earning much, but my mentor told me, if you can't save a dime out of $1, you won't save 100 out of 1,000. And that was true. It wasn't about the amount, it was about establishing control. So I started small, 10% every time I earned, automatically. No debate, no delay. It wasn't long before I noticed something remarkable. My confidence grew with my savings, and opportunities began to appear. Opportunities I would have missed if I hadn't prepared. The rich don't save what's left after spending. They spend what's left after saving. They've made their priorities non-negotiable. They understand that wealth is built by accumulation, not just acquisition. And they don't let lifestyle sabotage their future. They let discipline direct their choices. So don't wait for a big income to start saving. Start now. Start small, but start strong. Decide today that every time money enters your life, the first person it serves is your future self. That's the habit that separates financial struggle from financial strength. And once it's set, it becomes one of the most powerful wealth-building tools you'll ever own. One of the greatest breakthroughs you can have on your journey to wealth is understanding the difference between a liability and an asset. It's simple, but it's profound. If it takes money out of your pocket, it's a liability. If it puts money in your pocket, it's an asset. Yet most people never pause long enough to truly grasp this distinction. And it's costing them their future. The middle class often gets caught in a trap. They work hard, earn more, and then use that income to buy things they think are signs of success: new cars, big homes, shiny gadgets. But those things, more often than not, are liabilities. They require maintenance, taxes, interest, upgrades, and the money flows out. Month after month, dollar after dollar, they're serving the things they bought instead of building anything that serves them in return. The wealthy take a different path. When they earn, they ask a different question. How can I turn this income into something that grows, something that pays me back? That's the mindset of asset accumulation. They buy rental properties, invest in businesses, acquire intellectual property, or purchase income-producing stocks. Every asset is chosen with intention. To produce more income, to expand their net worth, to create freedom. When I first heard this principle, it changed everything for me. I realized I had been spending like the middle class, trying to look good, trying to feel successful, but I wasn't planting anything that would grow. So I made a shift. I stopped chasing comfort and started chasing cash flow. I bought books instead of toys. I built a product instead of buying another piece of furniture. And slowly the tide began to turn. Assets require patience. They don't always shine on day one, but over time, they multiply. One rental property becomes two. One stock turns into a dividend check. One piece of intellectual property sells again and again. While the middle class is upgrading their car every 3 years, the wealthy are upgrading their income streams. So the next time you're about to make a financial decision, ask yourself, will this feed me or drain me? Will this help me build, or will this make me look like I already have? Shift your focus from lifestyle to leverage. Buy fewer things that rust and more things that grow. That's how you move from maintaining an image to building a legacy. Most people are taught early on that the only way to earn a living is to trade time for money. Work 8 hours, get paid for 8 hours. The problem is, time is limited, but the need for money never is. So the poor get stuck in this trap. They keep trading hours, but they can never get ahead because there are only so many hours in a day. And when you live like that, the moment you stop working, the income stops too. It's a system built on exhaustion. But the wealthy think differently. They don't just ask, how can I make money? They ask, how can I make money without being there? That's a very different question. That question leads to systems. It leads to automation. It leads to leverage. The goal isn't just income, it's independence. You don't want to be tied to a job like a prisoner with a paycheck. You want your money to work while you sleep, while you travel, while you rest. I learned this the hard way. I was working hard, clocking in and clocking out, thinking I was doing well. And I was for a while. But I realized I had built no leverage. If I got sick, the money stopped. If I wanted to take time off, the money stopped. That's when I started investing, not just in financial assets, but in my mind. I started creating things that could work without me. A course, a product, a piece of content, investments, systems that could multiply effort without multiplying time. It's not about being lazy, it's about being smart. You still have to work, but the question is, what are you working on? Are you just building someone else's dream? Or are you also building something of your own? Something that can one day free you from the clock. The rich buy time. They spend money to delegate. They use systems to scale. They make one decision that pays them 100 times instead of making the same decision 100 times. They value their time more than anything else because once it's gone, it's gone. So if you're working hard, that's a good start. But don't stop there. Start working on systems. Start building assets. Start buying back your time. Because until you do, freedom will always be just out of reach. One of the biggest traps that catches people by surprise is lifestyle creep. It doesn't show up all at once. It creeps in slowly, subtly. You get a raise and suddenly you're in a nicer apartment. Your income goes up and now you're driving a newer car. You start making more and your weekends get more expensive. What used to be luxuries now become necessities. And pretty soon there's nothing left to invest. You're making more, but you're not getting ahead. That's lifestyle creeping. It's dangerous because it feels like progress, but it's actually standing still. Now, the wealthy play a different game. They draw a line, what I call a lifestyle cap. Instead of letting expenses grow with income, they choose a lifestyle and stick to it. Not because they can't afford more, but because they know what the extra dollars are really for. Those dollars are the seeds of freedom. The more they hold back from spending, the more they can invest. And the more they invest, the more assets they build. That's how real wealth grows. I remember when I started earning more than I ever had, it was very tempting to upgrade everything. And I did a little, but I kept reminding myself, luxury feels good for a moment, but freedom feels good forever. So instead of buying new cars, I bought new books. Instead of upgrading my lifestyle, I upgraded my portfolio. I knew that every dollar I didn't spend was a dollar that could go to work for me buying real estate, starting businesses, compounding in investments. And those choices made all the difference. See, anyone can look rich. That's easy. But looking rich and being rich are two different things. Looking rich is a show. Being rich is a strategy. It's discipline. It's vision. It's saying no to short-term gratification so you can say yes to long-term abundance. And here's the thing, you don't need to make millions to build wealth. You need to manage what you already make with wisdom. If your lifestyle always rises with your income, you'll always feel broke no matter how much you earn. But if you set a cap, if you live below your means and invest the rest, that gap becomes the fuel for your future. Discipline today creates freedom tomorrow. That's the real luxury. Most people are taught that school is the path to success. And there's truth in that. Formal education gives you the basics. It teaches you how to read, how to write, how to follow the rules. That's important. But the truth is, formal education will make you a living. If you want to make a fortune, if you want to rise beyond paycheck to paycheck, you need a second education. You need to become a student of wealth, a student of money. The middle class often believes that once school is over, the learning is done. They get their degree, land the job, and then the books go back on the shelf maybe forever. They don't make time to study money, investing, taxes, compounding, leverage, systems. But let me tell you, money doesn't care about your degree. It cares about your understanding. And if you don't learn how money works, someone who does will always end up with yours. I made it a point early in my life to read everything I could find on wealth books by people who had done it, not just talked about it. I listened to tapes, I went to seminars, I asked questions. I didn't wait for someone to hand me financial wisdom, I chased it. And the more I studied, the clearer it became. The wealthy aren't just lucky, they're learners, constant learners. They're the ones in the room asking how interest works, how taxes affect returns, how to scale a business, how to read a balance sheet. They're not trying to be entertained, they're trying to be educated. You see, the game changes, and if you don't keep learning, you'll be playing by old rules in a new world. The wealthy know that every dollar they spend on financial education is a seed planted. One good idea, just one, can change your whole financial future. One insight on how to invest, how to protect, how to grow. That could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. So don't leave your future to chance. Don't trust that just working hard will be enough. You've got to work smart. You've got to study money like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. Self-education is the edge. It's what separates those who survive from those who thrive. Most people think that if they could just earn a higher income, all their problems would disappear. And while income matters, of course it does, it's not the whole picture. You can earn a lot and still be broke. I've seen people making six figures living paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because they measure success by what flows in, not by what stays, grows, and multiplies. The poor often focus on income because that's what they've been trained to see. How much do you make? Becomes the question of worth. But income is fleeting. It's here today, gone tomorrow. Lose the job, get sick, take a wrong step, and it can vanish. Income is temporary, net worth is long-term. The wealthy see things differently. They ask, what do I own? What do I control? What grows even when I'm sleeping? That's net worth. That's assets. That's equity. It's the value of what you've built, what you've saved, and what you've acquired that works for you, whether you're working or not. Now, I've known people who earned modest incomes but ended up wealthy. How? Because they built wisely. They bought property. They owned businesses. They acquired stocks, intellectual property, income-generating machines. They didn't rely solely on their labor. They created leverage. And every dollar they earned, they asked, how can this help me build my net worth? I remember a man I worked with in my early years. He was a school teacher, modest salary, nothing flashy, but every month, like clockwork, he bought a little more stock, invested in a little real estate, lived beneath his means. By the time he retired, he wasn't just comfortable. He was wealthy because he understood it's not what you earn, it's what you own. You can have a big salary and still be poor if you spend it all. But if you focus on converting income into assets, into things that increase in value or generate income, you begin to build true wealth. And once your assets pay for your life, that's financial freedom. That's where the game changes. So don't just chase a bigger paycheck. Build something that outlives your effort. Let your income be the tool, but let net worth be the measure. Most people don't realize just how expensive emotions can be. You walk into a store after a stressful week and say, I deserve this. And before you know it, your wallet is lighter, your bank account smaller, and what you bought has lost its value the moment you walked out the door. That's emotional spending. It's buying based on feeling, relief, excitement, boredom, envy. And it's one of the fastest ways to stay broke. The poor often spend emotionally because they're trying to fill a gap. Sometimes it's frustration, sometimes low self-worth, sometimes the pressure of looking successful before they've actually built success. But no matter the reason, the result is the same. The money goes out faster than it comes in. And what's worse, they rarely even remember what they bought. They remember the emotion that triggered it, but the object, it fades, and the cycle repeats. Now, the wealthy, they do it differently. They spend with strategy, not emotion. Every dollar has a job. Every purchase has a reason. I once asked a very successful man how he decides what to buy. He said, if it doesn't create value, protect value, or multiply value, I don't touch it. That's a mindset. That's control. You see, emotions make poor advisors. They're loud, impulsive, and short-sighted. Strategy, on the other hand, is quiet, steady, and long-term. And here's the kicker. If you're always reacting emotionally, you're not in control of your money. Your money's in control of you. And when your emotions run your finances, you're just a decision away from disaster. I remember a young man who told me he couldn't save because he had too many expenses. But when we sat down and looked, half of what he spent was emotional. Fast food when tired, gadgets to impress friends, clothes he didn't need, vacations to escape problems instead of solving them. I said, you don't have an income problem. You have a discipline problem. You don't need more money. You need a better plan. So start building that plan. Delay gratification. Ask yourself, is this decision moving me closer to my long-term vision or just solving a short-term feeling? If you want to be wealthy, don't let feelings make your choices. Let vision guide your steps. Because freedom isn't found in what you buy today, it's found in what you build for tomorrow. I've met people who grew up hearing, money is the root of all evil. And I always tell them, no, it's not. The love of money is the root of all evil. But money itself, money is a tool, a powerful one. And like any tool, it can build or destroy depending on the hands that wield it. A hammer can build a house or break a window. It's not the hammer's fault, it's the intention behind it. The poor often grow up being told that wanting more money is greedy, that success is suspicious, that rich people must have done something wrong to get there. And if you believe that, even unconsciously, you'll sabotage every opportunity to grow. Why? Because deep down, you don't want to become what you've been taught to hate. That's a psychological wall, and it's one of the most dangerous ones. It keeps people poor, not just financially, but in possibility. The wealthy see money differently. They see it as leverage, as freedom, as a magnifier of values. If you're kind, generous, and disciplined, money gives you the power to do more of that. If you're careless, selfish, or insecure, money just makes it more visible. It doesn't change you, it reveals you. That's why character matters more than cash. But don't mistake that for a reason to avoid wealth. Develop your character and your capacity. When I was starting out, I had this tension. I wanted to be successful, but I felt guilty for it. I thought I'd have to choose between being good and being rich. That's what I was told. But then I met a man, wealthy, humble, generous. He paid his employees well. He supported charities quietly. And he taught me something simple. If you're a good person, then you should be the one who gets rich, because you'll do the right things with it. That changed me. I realized the more resources I had, the more value I could bring. So the question is never, is money evil? The question is, am I the kind of person who can be trusted with it? Don't fear money. Master it. Use it with wisdom. Use it with purpose. Because in the hands of the wise, money becomes a tool of transformation. So here we are. After all this talk of habits, decisions, and philosophies, what's left to say? Just this. Wealth is not a bank account. It's a mindset. It's a quiet decision made every day to take responsibility, to think long term, to choose strategy over impulse, and to reject the idea that life just happens to you. It doesn't. Life responds to how you think, what you study, and how consistently you act on what you learn. Don't wait for the economy to change or the government to shift policy or your family to suddenly support you. Start where you are. Start with the habits. Change the conversations you engage in. Watch what you read. Re-examine where your money goes. Begin to think like someone who will own, not just consume. Invest, not just spend. Learn, not just react. Build, not just wish. And don't worry if it seems slow at first. All worthy change starts quietly. But if you stay on course, the curve begins to bend. Your finances shift. Your confidence grows. Your time frees up. And one day you'll look around and realize you don't just earn money, you've created a life. So the call to action is simple. Don't just be inspired, be changed. Take one habit from today and make it yours. Not tomorrow, today. Because the distance between where you are and where you want to be, it's not money, it's mindset. And that part is entirely within your reach.